So the last thing I wanted to mention with this purple block here is what's being returned from its code generator. So we see that we see that we get a list again with two items, and the first item or the 0th item is the code itself, and we again have the operator precedence for the last item. So again, how do we determine to use blockly.javascript.order function call? Well, when we look at the code that's going to be produced from this block, we'll see a membership operator here and a function call, right? So the membership operator, right, the period here, we're saying get the split member of the string, this string here. Technically, it's the member of string.prototype, but you don't have to worry about that right now. But we're saying get the split property of that object, right? And then call the function with this input, right? So when we put this, we could potentially put this purple block inside of another block. And the question is, what would be something that could break it up? And you've heard maybe a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Well, when you look at the operator precedence thing, we said list, you said we used two operators here. One was the member operator, right? And the other was the function call. So we would take the weaker of the two, or the one with the larger number, and that's why we return order function call. Now technically, a function call and the member operator actually have the same precedence, but we use the one here that has the higher number. Now, one thing I also want to mention also, because I've sort of omitted this fact so far, is that there are exceptions to these rules. So for example, if you have two that are order none or two that are order atomic, and what I mean by that is the input, you pass order none to value to code, and the block that's in there, its generator, also had order none. You would say normally you'd be comparing the floor of 99 to the floor of 99, and since those two are equal, you would surround it by parentheses. And similarly for order atomic, if they were both order atomic, you would be comparing the floor of 0 to the floor of 0. And again, those are the same, so you would wrap it in parentheses. But when you have order atomic and order atomic, or order none and order none, it will not wrap it in parentheses. And there are other exceptions that are as well, and you can see them for JavaScript, the pairs that will be exceptions here, right? So order member and order function call, remember we said that those actually have the same precedence, so you wouldn't wrap order member. Clearly those two have the same precedence, but you wouldn't actually wrap one in parentheses. So if you winded up getting an input that, or if you had a block there for an input that was, its code generator was returning order function call for its operator precedence, and the input said, okay, if you have anything weaker or just as weak as, or I should say, anything with lesser precedence or the same precedence as order member, then you should wrap it in parentheses. Well, that won't happen here. And it also won't happen order member. So just to see some of these exceptions in action here, again, we could change things around. I'll do actually the other one over here, order addition. So if I go back here for delim, and instead of putting order none, I put order addition, right? And remember this create text with block, when it has two slots of strings, when it's concatenating two strings, it's going to be returning order addition for its operator precedence. So normally when it would compare order addition to order addition, it would wrap it in parentheses. But you'll see after I do this, it's one of those exceptions. So if I do to JavaScript, those parentheses go away. And remember, these parentheses were the original ones that were part of the code from this purple block, right? And similarly, over here, if I just move this out and I just put, just duplicate this, right? If I do to JavaScript, well, we know this was being compared to, this had order atomic, and we know this was being compared to order member. So we know that, 0, it would be comparing 0 and 1, and it would say, okay, 0 is less than 1, so I don't have to wrap it in parentheses. But if I just changed it, right, so if I just went back and initially changed that order member to order atomic again, it still doesn't wrap it in parentheses, right? Whereas if I move this out, put this back, and did it here, of course, then we put it in parentheses again. So let me just fix this here and just put this back to order member. Yeah. So again, it still wraps it in parentheses because this is going to be addition. But again, just also let me point out here that one more thing here is that you could see that when I do to JavaScript, we have this is what gets generated if it doesn't need to wrap it in parentheses. So it's just there to see, right? So in this case, this block is not inside any other input block, so it's not going to be wrapping the code in parentheses, right? And similarly, we can do order none and order none, right? So this was already order none. So if we were to, let's say, change let's move this here. If we were to go in and change the concatenation, so let me go to text join here, copy this, and change this right here, we're at case 2. If I changed order addition to order none, so by returning this, I'm saying it always needs to be, this block always needs to be surrounded in parentheses, basically. Then when I run, actually, before I run the code, I also need to return it back to what it was. I didn't want order addition anymore. Remember, I wanted order none for this purple block here. So when I do that and then I run it again here, you'll notice that here, right, the create text with is surrounded by parentheses, but split, right, when the input here is not surrounded by additional parentheses. So I said again that order none basically says if you return that as part of your operator precedence, then you're basically saying always surround by parentheses. Well, normally would compare 99 to 99 and it would say, okay, those are equal, so I will surround it by parentheses. But again, that's one of the exceptions, so it doesn't surround it by parentheses. Okay, so let me go back and fix it again here, fix it to what it originally was before we move on. And if you're doing this, you're changing this. I mean, you could always, all these blocks generators, you could always go and refresh, because the changes you make are just being saved locally on your computer and temporarily until you refresh the page or leave it. But if you're doing all these changes and you don't keep track of all of them, you might make a mistake there. So when you make a change, you might want to revert it back so you don't forget. So this one, remember, was a order addition, right? Okay, so I'll continue with another example in the next part.